Good afternoon, everybody. Councillors, officers, members of the public and press. Welcome to the meeting of Children's Services. This meeting is a remote meeting and being live streamed onto the website and recorded. I now hand you over to Denise Winpenny from Democratic Services.
Thank you, Chair. We'll begin the meeting by way of a roll call of all those in attendance remotely. And may I request members to confirm that they have a paper copy of the agenda and can both hear and see councillors in the meeting. I will now begin the roll call. Councillor Hamilton.
Yes, I've got everything I need. I'm all good to go.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Yes, I've got everything, Denise, and can see and hear everyone.
Thank you. Councillor Lauderdale.
Yes, I'm here. I've got my papers. I can hear you but not see you.
Thank you. Councillor Lindridge.
Yes, can see, hear and have the papers.
Councillor Little. Thank you.
Yes, I've got my papers and I can see and hear.
Thanks. Councillor Moore. Councillor Moore hasn't made it today. And Councillor Smith.
I have my papers and I can see and hear everybody.
And just moving on to co-opted members, Joe Heaton.
Yeah, I've got my papers and I can see and hear people. It's a bit crackly, but I can hear.
Okay, thanks. Jo Wilson.
Yes, I'm here. I have all the papers. Can see and hear everyone.
Thank you. David Turner. No reply from David. Thank you. Mark Tilling.
Yes, I'm here. I can see you all. I've got the papers.
Zoe Wesley.
Hi, yes, I'm here. I've got the papers, etc. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That now concludes the roll call. Is there anyone that is present that I haven't referred to in the roll call? No? That now concludes the roll call, Chair. I'll just hand over now to take any apologies for absence.
I've not received any apologies from absence. Has anybody got any to declare? No. So we move on to item 2. Any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest shown. Moving on to 6.1, approval of term and holiday dates. I move over to Anne Turner.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just like to present a report on school term and holiday dates for 21-22 and to seek members' approval for a pattern of school term holiday dates for 21-22 for community and voluntary controlled schools, and to seek agreement of Children's Services Committee in recommending these dates to governing bodies of aided and foundation schools and academies. But also it should be noted that term dates for academies and voluntary aided schools are sometimes set by the founding trusts. As a local authority, the council has a responsibility to set school term dates for voluntary controlled schools and community schools, but works closely with voluntary aided and foundation governing bodies and academies as well to look at a pattern across the town with regard to school term dates. In addition to that, the pattern also has 5 PD days provided for in teachers' conditions and service and can become taken as a combination of twilight sessions or dates. Local authorities for a number of years have tried, with some success, to agree unified calendars of term dates across the northern region, from Yorkshire to Humberside, and based on guiding principles which were agreed by the regional groups in 2012-13. The proposals for the 21-22 school term dates in the late autumn of 2019, Tees Valley region consulted on a pattern for school term dates based on the guiding principles within their own authorities and regional authorities, and that's shown on Appendix 2 to the report. The proposed pattern will enable schools to begin the academic year on Wednesday, the 1st of September 21, and end the year on Thursday, the 21st of July 22. Following discussions, arrangements were made to consult all head teachers in Hartlepool through the directors' termly meeting on the school term time dates. And a further pattern was also agreed at that time in which to consult, which had been proposed by a Hartlepool secondary head teacher, as shown in Appendix 2 to the report. Appendix 2, the proposed pattern there, would see the schools opening on Friday the 3rd of September and end on Monday the 25th of July 2022, with an expectation that schools will take the first and last day of the academic year as professional development days, with children joining the academic year on Monday the 6th of September and ending the academic year on Friday the 22nd of July. Consultation, we consult widely on the school term dates with local authorities and also within Hartlepool schools and Hartlepool's clusters, including members of community, voluntary aided and foundation schools and academies across the town, considered both of these options. 2 out of the 4 cluster groups actually responded and provided feedback on the models within the preferred option, being Appendix 2. The cluster groups preferred the model which will enable staff and children to be in school for full weeks before and after school holidays, although it should be noted that Christmas, Easter and half-term breaks will match the holidays within Appendix 1. But a return to school by children on the 6th of September 21 will result in children having 7 weeks summer break at the end of the academic year 2021. If I can just take you to paragraph 4.5 of the report, due to children having a prolonged and interrupted time off school during the academic year 2019-20 due to the coronavirus pandemic. There's uncertainty in relation to the current academic year 2021 and the need for all children, but particularly the vulnerable children, to catch up on lost education from the summer term 2019-20. And there's some reservations about a 7-week break for children and families in the summer of 21. On the completion of the local consultation in the region, local authorities within the Tees Valley have formally agreed a pattern for school year 21-22, which is Appendix 1. Darlington, Stockton-on-Tees, Redcar, Cleveland, Middlesbrough's unknown at this time, but I suspect they will follow that same pattern. Regionally, Durham County Council and North Tyneside have also agreed this pattern for the school year 21-22. South Tyneside and North Yorkshire County Council have agreed a pattern for the school year 21-22, similar to Appendix 2, with the term beginning on Monday the 6th of September 21. Only 2 of the 4 cluster groups actually responded to the consultation, all head teachers of schools and academies in Hartlepool have been contacted in order to have the opportunity to confer their preferred option in relation to the pattern of term dates. And this will assist members of Children's Services Committee in the consideration of the pattern for term dates for 21-22. In the report, I did say that there will be a verbal report at this meeting. An additional paper was sent to members on Friday last week, which actually I've compiled. You should have a copy of that with your papers. And it gives down, firstly, in my report, a breakdown of schools and academies across the town, which actually highlights the changing picture of schools, community schools, voluntary control schools, academies, and voluntary aided schools in the town. Just to point out there, 6 of the Roman Catholic schools will convert to academies during this academic year 2021. And there's an anticipated conversion of a secondary school to an academy. Going to Appendix 1, I received quite a lot of responses supporting the Appendix 1. From community primary schools, including special schools, so 4 community schools responded. Voluntary control schools, which we have 1 in the town, responded to Appendix 1. Voluntary aided schools, primary, 1 Church of England voluntary aided, again replied to support Appendix 1. There were no secondary schools supporting Appendix 1 or foundation schools supporting Appendix 1. There was 1 Church of England Academy supported Appendix 1, a primary academy, and 1 secondary academy supported Appendix 1. I also received quite a few comments. If I can just share some of the comments with you from the head teachers who responded. 6 weeks holiday is enough for primary children and children in our schools. 7 weeks holiday is not a good idea, particularly in the current climate. A number of schools want to maintain the consistency with neighbouring local authorities. The authorities we've actually worked with Tees Valley over the last few years. Staff travel into town schools from neighbouring authorities. Another point here, a number of schools take their 5 PD days as twilight sessions and add 5 days to the term holiday so that parents have a 2-week break in May. This has helped in the past with parents accessing cheaper holidays and also monitoring the attendance of children being taken out of school for holidays. Appendix 2 would possibly for schools have to give up 2 PD days in order to have those weeks. And it also may restrict the choice of days to other community schools. So there were the comments with regards to Appendix 1. In Appendix 2, number of schools supported Appendix 2. Primary schools, community primary schools, including special school 4, voluntary and control school none, voluntary aided schools primary 6, although the voluntary aided schools indicated as 6 are the 6 voluntary aided Roman Catholic schools, which will convert to an academy sometime this academic year. There was 1 voluntary aided school secondary supported this proposal, and again that's one that possibly could convert to academy. 1 foundation school supported the proposal. There were 4 primary academies and 2 secondary academies has also supported that proposal. I didn't receive many comments with regard to that. It was that just staff and children will be in school for full weeks before and after school holidays, and that the term dates fit in with the trust term dates for the 6 voluntary aided schools converting to academies. Most of those that actually responded to the appendix came from the 2 groups that responded in the first instance to the consultation.
Thank you, Anne. I just want to clarify just a couple of bits just before I open it out to the floor. So we've got 8 schools that responded that are looking for Appendix 1. Is Appendix 1 the one with 7 weeks holidays?
No, Appendix 1 is the one with 6 weeks holiday.
6 weeks holidays.
It's the it's actually the Tees Valley holidays.
So that was another thing. So Appendix 1 has the normal 6 weeks holidays.
Yes.
It also runs in line with the Tees Valley, which is Darlington Stockton, which is where most of our teaching community will probably come from.
That's right.
Appendix 2 is the one with the 7 weeks holiday, but the majority of the schools voted for it.
Yes, it was. I think that with regards to Appendix 2, there was 2 cluster groups responded to that, and a number of them, a number of those that actually responded as individuals as well, were part of those cluster groups. But also a number of those schools are actually feeders to the secondary school which proposed
that,
and also feeders to the voluntary aided school as well, which supported that option.
Thank you very much, Anne. Can I open this out to the floor? Anybody want to give us any feedback of which one would be preferable? Brenda.
Thanks, Chair. I would just like to know how our school reps, I actually don't ever feel in a position to give my view on this because it doesn't affect us personally. And I think, you know, I can give a view that I think 6 weeks holiday is better than 7, and particularly in this day and age. But at the same time, I would really appreciate the views of our school reps and what they think, please.
I agree, Brenda. I mean, the way that I look at it if the teachers have children and they work in Darlington, etc., then, you know, their children really need to be in line with ours. But I don't run a school, so it is better coming from the people that do. Jo, you were the next one to have your hand up.
Yeah, so our cluster, well, we actually went for Appendix 2, but it was on that whole week thing of we just felt coming back on a Thursday and a Friday after the break isn't always conducive to. We often get parents, we often get non-attenders on those days because they're often a holiday, so we do find that the odd days we don't get as good attendance. But it was also just that we felt a full week for the children is sometimes better. But I do take on board the 7-week break is a long time, and I don't think I'd considered that till now. We were more looking at full weeks. So I don't know if we discussed the 7-week break and the effect on the families more, whether that would change things. I'm not sure, but it was more on the whole weeks because we often get parents taking holidays on odd days. Okay.
Thanks, Jo. Mark?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I was the one who proposed it. I'll be open. I proposed the pattern. And the reason I proposed the pattern was because if you look at the holiday dates, it would have actually been 6 weeks and 2 days anyway. Take a PD day out of that week because you always start the year with a PD day. You're up to 6 weeks, 3 days. You'd end up with 2 days. Some people do 2 PD days. It becomes an odd 1 or 2 days beginning term. Full weeks aids attendance. I take on board what people say about matching other authorities, but other authorities have different holidays, and we have to cope with that. When you've got North Tyneside, North Yorkshire, we have staff come from all the authorities in the North East, not just the Tees Valley. We find full weeks is better, and finishing off on 4 weeks is better for attendance as well, rather than breaking into odd weeks. That's how we find it, and that's what we've done for the last few years. So I don't think the 7 weeks holiday really cuts it for me, because you're going to be talking 6 weeks, 3 days, 6 weeks, 4 days anyway. You're not going to be talking 5 weeks, 4 days. You're talking 6 weeks, 3 days, or 6 weeks, 4 days. You're only talking about an additional day.
So you are inclined to go with Appendix 2?
Yes.
Thank you. Anybody else got any input on this?
Lisa, just to say that, sorry, it was Jo Wilson who spoke before, and Jo Heaton's got her hand up still.
Sorry, Jo Heaton.
Thanks. I think someone put my hand down. I think it's a problem with having 2 Joes. I agree and reinforce what Mark said. We also, for both Hart and St Peter's Elwick, voted for Appendix 2, and it was around that part starts. in as Mark said, we get different schools having different PD days, and then we have parents who've got somebody at secondary and somebody at primary, and it's not the same consistent start, and that was the basis for it. As an added thing for us, we share our Academy Trust with Schools in Sunderland, and Appendix 2 is what Sunderland has gone with. So overall, in our cluster, we were overwhelmingly in favour of Appendix 2.
Thank you, Jo. Sue?
How long have we been asking the other schools for their feedback, the other like primary and secondary schools? How long have you given them to respond?
Well, we actually consulted on these dates going back into the autumn term, and then we're out of consultation this spring. And obviously, normally the holiday dates would have been agreed by this time. But because of COVID in schools and schools being closed, and also needing to get these holidays brought to Children's Services Committee, this is the first opportunity. We did send out a report, part of the report, to head teachers in August, and said, and also remind them about the options there for school term time dates.
I believe they've had sufficient time to get back if they actually wanted an opinion.
Right, okay. Right. I would like to wait a little bit longer to see if they would, but
I don't think a wait would happen, Sue. I think we've waited long enough. We're already starting the academy year, and we really should have had this decision made by now.
Yeah.
I think we will shortly be beginning to look at the 22, 23 holiday dates. I know that my colleagues are already looking at those dates as well. We try to do them about a year in advance to give parents and schools enough time to plan.
Can I ask Zoe how she feels about it, please? Because she's deals with a lot of more special needs children than what I know.
The
Mark
special
does.
needs children that came back, were equal. The special schools were equal 4 and 4 both. If you look at the separate appendix,
yeah,
it equaled out.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Jim.
Sorry, yeah, the questions I were going to ask have been answered by Mark. I'm comfortable with the information I've got. Schools have had more than enough time to get the answers back. And although I agree with Brenda there in terms of I'm not at school now, obviously, and it is important to try and cater for parents that's living out of town, but you can't cater for everybody. So I'm in favour of option 2. That's the way I'll be going at the moment.
Thanks, Jim. Brenda, before we take a vote.
Yes, just to say that having listened to the common sense there, it does make sense to go with option 2. I think that when it was said boldly as a difference between 7 and 6 weeks, that's quite a difference. But the difference of a day or two is not. So I appreciate what Mark said, and the two Joes.
Thank you. So does anybody disagree with going with Appendix 2? Raise your hand if you disagree with Appendix 2. I see nobody with their hands raised, so we're moving to Appendix 2. All agreed?
So the
agreed. Agreed.
Sorry, Anne.
I was just going to take the recommendations on the back page of the report.
If you want to read the recommendations out, you can. Is there anything else that you need other than?
Just to approve the schedule of term dates for holidays for 21-22 for community and voluntary controlled schools. And secondly, to recommend the schedule of term dates and holiday dates to governing bodies of voluntary aided foundation schools and academies in Hartlepool.
Yep, so we are now going with Appendix 2 for the recommendation. Can I just agree the minutes of the previous meeting? Does anybody have anything to add or change in the previous minutes? No, thank you very much. 6.2, can I take to Amanda?
Not unmuted. Apologies, everybody. I wasn't able to unmute myself there. This report, it's a non-key decision and it's around the PRU. So the purpose of the report, as I'll outline this afternoon, is to seek approval of the Children's Services Committee to a change of name of the Hartlepool Pupil Referral Unit to the Horizon School in Hartlepool. And this is in accordance with the Education Management Committees, etc., regulations of 2007 and in accordance with the Pupil Referral Units regulations of 2012. Also within this report, it's just for information for members to note that a review of the current constitution of the Management Committee at the PRU is underway. So in terms of background at item 3, members of the current Management Committee of the Hartlepool Pupil Referral Unit wish to change the name of the PRU as part of the ongoing development of the unit in providing education for permanently excluded pupils and for other pupils who, because of illness or other reasons, would not receive suitable education without such provision in Hartlepool. And members of the current Management Committee of the Hartlepool Pupil Referral Unit have engaged a National Leader of Governance, or an NLG, to undertake a review of the current constitution of the committee, which will begin in September 2020 in accordance with the Education, bear with me, turning the page, the Education Committees Act of 2007 and in accordance with the Pupil Referral Units regulations of 2013. So the purpose of the review is to look at the members' roles and responsibilities in the current Management Committee and to look at the skills and knowledge held within that committee. The key areas of focus are to ensure that the Management Committee is able to effectively carry out its strategic role in monitoring the aims and objectives of the unit and ensure the safety and safeguarding needs of the pupils, maintaining continuity and raising the standards of attainment of pupils. The review will also make recommendations on the size and constitution of the Management Committee. So the proposal at 4 is a revised instrument of government which reflects the change of name of the Pupil Referral Unit to the Horizon School Hartlepool and sets out the full constitution of the current Management Committee, which is at Appendix 1 to this report. So if you look at Appendix 1, the name of the school is the Horizon School Hartlepool. I believe that the logo for the new school has been shared. Is that correct, Anne? That's back to front. So we've only just received that today, unfortunately, but that's the logo that we're hoping to use for the new school name. So within Appendix 1 also, the name of the Management Committee is the Management Committee of the Horizon School Hartlepool, and the Management Committee will consist of 1 parent member, 2 local authority members, 2 staff members, 6 community members, a total number of 11 members. The term of office will be for 4 years, except for community members whose term shall be for 2 years. And the instrument of government comes into effect from the 15th of September 2020. So that's Appendix 1 for your information based on our proposal. So in terms of considerations, there are no legal considerations or asset management considerations, but the recommendation to this group is to formally approve the revised instrument of government to reflect the change of name of the Hartlepool Pupil Referral Unit to the Horizon School, as indicated at Appendix 1.
Thank you, Amanda. I do like the new logo. I think it goes well. It's quite calming, and I think that's one of the things that we need. Jim.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I welcome the new name. It's a long time coming. It's a long time since I've been dealing with children in the pupil referral unit, And I think it also takes away any potential stigma in the name, because it's the pupil referral unit doesn't sound very good in the public's eyes. It's a wrong perception. People go there for lots of different reasons, and I think this is the ideal opportunity. Like I say, a long time coming. What I'd like to ask is the capacity changing? You're changing the strategic objectives. Is the capacity going to increase or reduce, or could you inform me what the situation is there?
In terms of the management committee, or in terms of the PRU?
The actual pupil capacity, are you intending to enlarge that, reduce it, or is it going to stay the same?
We have no intention of changing the capacity at this point in time.
Right, that's fair enough. Thanks, Chair. That'll do.
Thank you. Anybody else? Brenda?
Thanks, Chair. I think it is a great idea to change the name. It worked for Windscale and Sellafield, so let's hope it works for this. It completely takes away the whole kind of idea of what it is, and gives it a fresh face completely. And yes, from what I saw of the logo, it looks really good. So I think it's a very, very good move, very positive.
Thank you very much. Yes, I totally agree. Leslie?
I just really want to endorse what Brenda said there about the change of the name. I absolutely hate pupil referral unit. I mean, really all you need attached is delinquent on the end, and that would, you know, paint an awful picture of what people's views of that school were originally. So I'm hoping that it does have the desired effect, and that it will not be viewed in a negative light, and the children that go there will want to go there and not feel embarrassed having to tell people where they are educated. So I really welcome the change, and it's about time coming. So thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. So are we all in agreement with the change of the name? Anybody raise their hand that disagree? Nope, that's moved. We now move on to 6.3. If anybody has any questions on pink papers, please remember that we need to move into closed session. It's in relation to the local authority representative, Anne Turner.
Sorry about that. This report is asking members to consider the nomination of a governor for a local authority position at Kingsley Community Primary School. Taking to the School Governance Regulations 2012 and the process for appointing local authority governors to school governing bodies requires the local authority to consider nominations to vacancies before they're actually presented to the relevant governing body for formal approval. The application is being received is actually in exempt there in the information under Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 72. The proposal is the report seeks the committee's decision on the application form from a nominee for the local authority governor at Kingsley Primary School. Discussions have actually taken place between the applicant, the chair of governors, and the head teacher regarding the skills and that the applicant can contribute to the governing body. The application received in respect of the vacancies from a serving governor on the governing body. Recommendations of the report is asking the committee to give consideration to the applicant set out in Appendix B in respect of the local authority nomination to Kingsley Primary School. And the reason for that recommendation is to ensure that the nomination of a local authority governor will contribute to the effectiveness of the governing body. On Appendix B to the report, there's a statement here that the applicant is currently serving as a member of the governing body after having served as a community and co-opted governor on that governing body for a number of years. The governing body's been without a local authority representative for almost 3 years. The applicant brings a range of skills to the governing body, including knowledge of the school and the community, and is committed to the role as a governor of the school. The applicant contributes to the various aspects of school governance, as well as a link governor for a number of curricular areas in the school.
Thank you, Anne. Are we all in agreement to the applicant? Raise your hands if anybody disagrees. No, thank you very much. 6.4, can I move over to Jane? You're muted.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to present the special guardianship policy. Following a review of the special guardianship policy and procedures, this report will provide committee with an overview of the policy, procedures and actions undertaken to ensure that the assessed needs of children and young people subject to special guardianship orders are met and that there is compliance with the Special Guardianship Regulations 2005. In addition, the report also highlights the importance of providing consistent and timely method of reviewing support and ensuring special guardians and children and young people subject to special guardianship orders have the appropriate access to a wide range of services. Paragraph 3, the background. A review of adoption in 2000 identified there was a significant group of children who did not wish to make the absolute legal break from their birth parents associated with adoption. The review recognised that long-term fostering sometimes lacks security and a proper sense of parents in a family, and it did not suit all children. The review identified the need for an intermediate legal status between adoption and residence orders, which are now known as child arrangements orders, which offer a greater legal security for children, but without the absolute legal severance of a child from their birth family. So the Children Act 89 was amended by the Adoption Children Act in 2002 to create special guardianship orders. In 3.2 of the report, we detail that special guardianship orders are important permanency option for children, and once in place, it means that children are no longer looked after by the authority. The vast majority of special guardianship orders are made to family members of the child or young person, many of whom are their grandparents. 3.3 of the report details that special guardianship orders are accompanied by proper access to a full range of support services, including where appropriate financial support. The legislation places a duty on local authorities to make arrangements for the provision of special guardianship support services, which means counselling, advice, information, and other such services prescribed in the Special Guardianship Regulation. These regulations are supported by the statutory guidance issued from the Department of Education. In paragraph 3, 4 details some of the, provide some of the details around the statutory functions in relation to special guardianship and some of the changes that have come about with case law and through local government ombudsman decisions. In paragraph 4, the proposals, all special guardianships receive an assessment of their support needs and a support plan of how local authorities propose to meet these needs to be produced. The support can range from universal services to the provision of specialist support, and you can see on Appendix A in the policy. Special guardianship support is wide-ranging and include, amongst other things, mediation, therapeutic service, respite provision, advice, guidance and counselling. It also includes financial support as outlined in paragraph 3.5 above. Where financial support is provided, it is crucial that the full details of purpose, amount and duration of the support is recorded and shared with the special guardian. This support can be either a one-off payment for a specific purpose or provide a regular support to income maintenance. In paragraph 5 of the report, the risk implications, failure to provide services, special guardianships and children in care could impact upon their progress and impact for children and young people, and in some cases mean they would need to continue to become looked after. The special guardianship regulations place statutory responsibility on a local authority to provide support services, and failure to do so could lead to a judicial review. So, paragraph 6, financial considerations. Since April 2017, the budget for special guardianship and child arrangements orders has increased to reflect the increased number of children subject to these orders, and it is funded as part of the looked after children's budget pressure each year. The budget is based on the current number of children under such orders and agreed levels of financial support already in place. There are no direct financial implications arising from the update of the policy. However, if the number of children subject to such orders continues to increase, or they require further financial support needs following a review of existing carers, then a further budget pressures are likely. The budget is closely monitored, and any additional pressures will be included in the medium-term financial support. Legal considerations, paragraph 7. The local authority has a statutory responsibility to provide, assess and support special guardians in accordance to the Adoption Children Act 2002 and the Special Guardians Regulations 2005. Recommendations. Members are asked to approve the special guardianship policy and procedure. And I'll take any questions that members may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. This is just an update of a policy that is already in place, so it's nothing new, it's something that we already have. I'll pass Jim.
Yes, I'm just going to endorse that, Chair. As a former member of the adoption panel, you know the importance of meeting the emotional needs of the children that we have in our care, and I think I found that quite significant. A break with the birth family always seemed to be arise when we're having any reviews, and from a cost point of view, I don't think we can put enough money into this. We never know the numbers are going to change, but if they do, we still have to cater for it. You know, I fully support the recommendations. Thanks. You.
Thank you, Jim. Brenda?
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, it's a great thing, and I think that everyone involved does a really good job with this. However, I'm just going to ask you a question here, Jane, which I'm not sure whether you'd have the answer to, but it concerns me slightly, and I have brought something to Sally and Danielle before about people who are not sort of get out of the system. So I'm thinking of a grandparent who is looking after full-time the grandchild, doesn't get any of that extra support, and this is a kind of privately sorted situation. Do we know how many of those exist, and is there anything we can do to give them that support that they're not getting? And I do understand that, you know, they're not coming to you and asking for the support, but I think they're slipping through the net, and I think there will be a few.
In relation to our statutory responsibility, if we are responsible where we've needed to intervene, where we've said that the children need an alternative carer, and the special guardianship regulation reflects the situation in terms of if you would otherwise as a local authority needed to intervene, and your options would be adoption or long-term fostering. So it is the regulations are there designed so as children, because there was a lot of children in the system where adoption wasn't the right plan, and the only other option for them was long-term fostering. And you know, the regulations came into place to allow for families, for children to be claimed by families where as an alternative to adoption. And to be fair, at the outset, I think it was expected that it's likely to be foster carers that would take special guardianship orders. As time has passed, you know, there's been a shift in terms of that balance really, and there are more family members taking the children, and there is the vast majority of our special guardianship orders are to family members, and there is that responsibility. I would like to think that we are providing through our universal offer the support that is available to special guardian. There is also, as part of the special guardian special guardians can receive therapeutic support through the adoption and special guardianship therapeutic support from the government. So there are other options. So I would like to think, as an authority, our wider role in terms of supporting children in need in the town, we would be able to offer that.
And I think you're dead right, Jane. My concern is that those people who maybe are not aware of this kind of thing, and just have their own private situation where grandma will look after grandchild until they're 16 or whatever, and they're not getting that support. I don't know what we can do about it, but I think they do exist. And I think it's something that maybe, we need to be aware of in order to try and particularly members be aware of, so that we can put people onto which is what happened in a particular case. So I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that the support is not there. I know it is, and I know it's very good, and I just think it's a fantastic system. But I'm talking about the people who might just escape the system and not realise that they could have support when they just haven't got it.
Yeah, I think our responsibilities are clear in terms of our intervention. I do think in terms of the wider, there's opportunities within the wider system in terms of through schools and through early help and through health services to provide that support. It doesn't, that support should be available where that's needed, and it doesn't necessarily need to come to the council. There is wider opportunities that we would signpost if people needed any support, if they came to our children's hub or children's centres.
Thank you, Jane. Sue?
I totally agree with what Mrs. Harrison's just said there. I can remember a massive debate on the radio. I know, I'm sorry, it's school teacher, can't get it out of my head. I can remember last year, there was a massive debate on Radio Tees about kingship children who are staying with the grandparents. And I do think there's lots of children who are going under the radar because they think they're still in mum's care. Grandma and granddad might pick them up from school, but they'll probably be staying at grandma's and granddad's and not going home. And the school don't want to say anything because it might stop the mum's benefits, where there might be more things happening. So maybe schools could work with us to see if they know of anybody, and I bet they do already, but grandparents...
I would say the ownership would then be on the schools to be able to signpost them towards the right people. The council cannot see and hear everything. So yeah, the onus is on, if the schools can see it, then the schools should surely be able to signpost it. Sally?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was just quite briefly just to reflect that it's a minefield of special child arrangement order, special guardianship order, children looked after. It is a minefield of different orders, but one of the particular areas where there is a child living with a relative who's not a close relative, they are privately fostered, and there are regulations in relation to that, and families at schools are aware of private fostering arrangements and do appropriately refer those families through where they know there's a private fostering situation, which is nothing to do, I hasten to add, with our foster carers. It's a completely different family arrangement, but schools do know about that arrangement and refer families where that happens.
Oh, thank you, Sally. Jane, has that answered It has. Thank you very much. So can we move to the recommendation, please, that members approve the guardianship policy? Anybody in disagreement, please raise your hand. No. That's been passed. The next one is 7.1. Jane?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this report is to provide Children's Services Committee with the Fostering Service Interim report. Committee members will be used to me coming along to present this report. We are required to do this as part of the fostering regulations on a quarterly basis, because our fostering service is a regulated service. So in terms of for the background, it's the fostering minimum standards require the fostering service to ensure that the executive of the local authority receives a written report of the management outcomes and financial state of the agency every 3 months, monitors the management and outcomes of the service to satisfy themselves that the agency is effective and achieving good outcomes for children, and satisfies themselves that the agency is complying with the conditions of the registration. Paragraph 4 outlines the recruitment retention information. I think I would just take you to 4.4 because obviously it's been a very challenging few months through COVID, and I have to say that my sincere gratitude to our foster carers. They've done an absolutely marvellous job in supporting children throughout this difficult time and supporting their families. They have gone above and beyond in terms of the work that they've done. It's not been easy for any family, and certainly some of our foster carers, it's been particularly challenging, but nevertheless they've done a fabulous job. There has been some flexibilities introduced in terms of legislation. Because of COVID, we were able to bring new carers in a kind of reduced assessment process, and we did put a call out to across the whole council and across schools, and did have some responses, and so they've been going through assessments. We asked our approved carers to take on maybe more children or expanded their age range, which they did, as we have become to appreciate and expect, and they stepped up and they've helped us manage the COVID pandemic so far particularly well. You know, we had carers that were willing and able to take children who we believed, well, who we were worried had COVID, were displaying COVID symptoms, and they still said, yes, you can bring them here. So, you know, I think that's testament to the foster carers that we've got. 4.7 gives you a flavour of the communications that we've maintained with our foster carers throughout the pandemic. We've obviously had to change our practices. We've not been going, you know, we've been doing virtual support visits rather than, obviously because of the COVID rules, and not visiting during lockdown in person. But that has not stopped us supporting them really well, and also the foster carers being able to tell us where we can improve, and you can see from the appendix 3 there, that was the feedback that we received from them. Fostering panel has continued throughout the pandemic. Councillor Harrison will be able to testament to that. It has not been without its challenges, as virtual discussions can be, because there's a lot of information and detail in our fostering panel, but they have continued to meet all the requirements and the regulations extremely well, and we haven't let the business end of our work to be interrupted, and I would like to place on thanks to the members of the panel for that, because it did come with its challenges. So I would like to thank our panel members for again going over and above and making sure that we still continue to be meeting the children's needs as is why we're here. In paragraph 6, there's some staff consideration. We've had 2 members of staff going on maternity leave. It can be challenging to backfill maternity leave, but we have got a plan around that, and we're working our way through that. We continue to want to develop the service, and we are continuing to recruit, and we will have to change the way that we train and introduce foster carers to the fostering task, but we can do that virtually, and we've got that in place and planned for the future. So in terms of recommendations, I'd like Children's Services to note the report in relation to the fostering service, and I'll take any questions that people might have. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for Jane? I'd just like to say thank you for that report, very in-depth and very well done to all the foster carers during COVID. Brenda.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, just to echo what Jane said, I think like our schools kept going right through lockdown, so has the fostering business been going, well, and children's services generally. I just think the attitude and the commitment that has been shown has been outstanding. And from my point of view, the fostering panel did not stop at all. We just went onto the virtual. The only downside, and I know Sally and Jane would be disappointed if I didn't mention this, is Skype. So whereas everything else is on Teams or Zoom, the fostering panel is still on Skype, and it's not as easy as the other two things I've mentioned. So it would be really good to see a change in that. But apart from that, everybody's been very committed. We even, at the end of our discussions in the panel, have the people who are there applying to become foster parents or whatever. We have them join the meeting. Then you can't always see them, but you can hear them, so that they're still part of it. And it has been really, really good, and well done to everybody involved.
Thank you, Brenda. So can we take this report as noted? Anybody raise your hand if not? No, thank you. 7.2, Vicky Davidson Boyd.
Hello, Chair. Hello to the committee. It's my first time at this committee, so I hope you'll bear with me, and I hope that everybody's received my annual report, which is the annual report of 2019 to 20. I'm just going to make an assumption that people have been able to read that report. Can I just check that? I'm looking at some nods on the screen. The annual report is presented. It's the Regional Adoption Agency annual report, and I think members will be aware that Hartlepool Borough Council is one of the 5 local authorities in the Tees Valley area that forms Adoption Tees Valley. We've now been up and running for a little in excess of 2 years. And I think what I'd prefer to do is to, rather than go through the report in detail, because it is quite lengthy, I would like to just kind of highlight some of the kind of aspects of the report and some aspects of the year, and then perhaps focus on how adoption for Hartlepool children has been running over the course of the last year, the reporting period. I think it would be fair to say the second year was very much a year where we were embedding the Regional Adoption Agency. I think our first year of setting up, it was May 2018 when the Regional Adoption Agency set up. And we certainly had a year where we were managing a great deal of change, some very significant change processes in terms of the adoption function of local authorities now being held within the Regional Adoption Agency. And I would say that our second year has been one where we feel we've really begun to consolidate and hopefully move towards achieving some of those kind of objectives that the regionalisation programme was intended to achieve. The government set out that it wanted to make an impact on matching of children more quickly, timescales for children, on recruitment of adopters, having a greater pool of adopters available for children, which in its own way would impact on timescales. And also the government really set out that it expected and hoped for a greater degree of adoption support that would help improve outcomes for children in the long term who were placed for adoption. And I hopefully have attended to and addressed those issues within the annual report that's presented. We had some real bonuses and successes last year. We built on our recruitment practice. I think it would be fair to say in year one, our recruitment processes needed to be aligned. We were still running with the local authority adoption panels for part of that year, but we have brought together the adoption panel for Adoption Tees Valley, which now considers all of the adopter approvals and any match of a child who is going to be matched with adopters. The decision making for adopter approvals comes back to myself as agency decision maker, and the decision making on the match for the child with the approved adopters goes to the local authority agency decision maker, who's Sally Robinson in this case. So Sally sees all of the matches of the children, the proposed matches, and makes those decisions. So we've had a very good year for recruitment in 2019 to 20. We set ambitious targets for recruitment based on the projected numbers of placement orders across the Tees Valleys, and we were aiming for 60 adopters to be recruited. In actual fact, we approved 50. I felt that this was still quite a significant success, and just gives us room for improvement moving into this year that we're in now. In fact, we have increased our targets for recruitment of adoptive parents this year, because one of our, the kind of features that we had last year was that many more children were referred through, and we had a higher number of children than we expected to place for adoption. So we've actually increased the recruitment targets this year to 80 adoptive families. So that's our big challenge for this year. I think it would be fair to say that the volume of children, the numbers of children that were referred, those children that we were looking for adoptive families for, was one of our big challenges last year. But I think we did really, really well, and I'm really proud of the service, because we did place 91 children with adoptive families, and we were able to achieve that for almost all of the children who were referred through, not every child, and obviously it acts as somewhat of a pipeline. So children are coming through as the year begins. They are at somewhere in their care planning process, and we continue to look for suitable adopters. We ran our preparation training 6 times over the last year. So we ran that training every 2 months, and our training groups were really full, and we had really good and positive feedback from the preparation training. So that was something that we really valued and we listened to in order to continually improve. I think I'd just kind of really like to comment that one of the things that I think has been really, really valuable in prep training is we have a birth mum who attends the preparation training for adopters on each and every occasion. And we've actually got about 3 birth mums who work with us. I've been attending prep group this afternoon for the final day, just this afternoon. I've come to start to describe those birth mums as part of the team, because they help adoptive parents to understand the impact on a birth parent of having a child placed for adoption, and how very important it is that we don't lose sight of birth parents as children grow up, and they want to know more about their birth identity. We feel it's really, really important that adopters embrace that in a very kind of authentic and real way, and do everything they can to reach out and make sure that birth parents do receive the indirect contact, but in some cases there may be some direct contact, or that may emerge. Contact plans may change. So that's something that's kind of really developed over the last year, and I think I feel very proud of, and I feel very proud of my team, but I feel very proud of those birth mums who also come and join us. In terms of Hartlepool children, we had a very good year for Hartlepool children. I think we were really successful, and it was really nice in the annual report to be able to use a case example of working together between a Hartlepool social worker and Adoption Tees Valley, just to highlight the way that we work together. We ask that all social workers who are even thinking about a plan of adoption for children refer that child to Adoption Tees Valley at the earliest possible stage. We don't ask for that at the time of agency decision or placement order. We'd like to know about the child at the earliest possible stage. We can always look very happily. Jane's referred to special guardianship orders. We can always be very welcoming that children have in fact gone down that route. But where we know that adoption is going to develop as the care plan for the child, it actually helps with timescales. It helps that child to move into their permanent family much more quickly if we have early notice of that child. And I think I would like to say that it works very well with Hartlepool. We have very good referral processes. The social workers are very well trained and briefed. They understand that. And I think I would like to say that is reflected in the timescales that Hartlepool children have in terms of achieving placement for adoption. So last year, we placed 11 Hartlepool children for adoption. And there were 12 adoption orders granted in that year. I think what I would just highlight is those children didn't achieve their adoption orders in that year. It would have been the children who were placed the previous year. I think it is worth saying that Hartlepool's figures and timescales for the date on which a child becomes looked after by the local authority to moving in with their adoptive parents were the best in this region. They were very good, well below the government average and the government intended timescales. And I think that is reflective of very good and confident care planning. The time between placement order and matching a child with their adoptive parents is also a very good figure. And in both of those areas, those figures have improved. So I think in terms of Hartlepool, what we have seen is some of the ambitions of the regionalisation programme have shown some impact. And that's not to say that wasn't a strong success for Hartlepool previously. But I think it's something to reflect that was very positive. A lot of the Hartlepool children, 86% of them were placed with their adoptive parents within 14 months of coming into the looked after system. And that is something that we would strive for. We would strive for better than that where possible. But of course, it's really important that the due process of care planning takes place. But we are seeking to work at a much earlier stage to help identify prospective adopters and think about who may be in our region able to take those children and to look after them. And we continue to work at that. That's just our improvement journey and where we're going. Jane's mentioned COVID and talked about that factor in relation to the fostering services, and it's of course been something that we've been really challenged by as well. It doesn't technically sit within the year that I'm reporting on, but I chose to report on it within the annual report because it's very current, and I think it was very important that those people who need to understand how we've managed that under the amended regulations were able to see that in a written report. We also made use of the coronavirus children adoption and children amended regulations, and but we did choose to continue to run an adoption panel, very much as the fostering panel in Hartlepool has run. We continued. We didn't have a drop-in panel. We run a weekly panel. That's working well for us. And it does mean that we're able to table matches as soon as the plans are available and we can bring those children to match. I think I would really echo what Jane said about the fostering panel members. I would just really like to say that the adoption panel also, the people who are sitting on adoption panel just worked really quickly to change and get to grips with this different way of doing things. And it was challenging initially, but I went to observe panel over the last fortnight. I've observed 2 panels just in accordance with our national minimum standards and in preparation for appraisals of chairs. And it was really good to see that things were running really smoothly. Social workers are able to attend via video conferencing, and the adopters are as well. So actually they're reporting that they actually feel a little bit more relaxed because they're not actually walking into a room. So our panel is working. We did give ourselves the option of running at a quoracy of 3. But there's only been, I think, 3 occasions when we've had to dip below the quoracy of 5, and that was only with 4 members. In terms of other regulations, amended regulations, we have utilised the amended regulations to allow us to take adopters into stage 2 of the assessment process without their DBS and without their medical report being yet returned. but we have not approved anybody without their medical being returned, nor without their DBS being returned, and we will maintain that. In fact, the amended regulations are due to lapse on the 24th of September, but we have maintained that, and I think that's been something of public scrutiny in relation to being assured that children are being safeguarded, and we are doing the correct checks and references. So we've managed COVID. We are not working within the building for the majority of our work. However, we are continuing with our assessment work. And in fact, we've approved far more adopters this year by this point in time than we had at this point in time last year. So those ambitious targets of 80 for this year, we will seek to achieve those targets of 80 approved adopters because we know we need them. And in fact, I've been astonished by the community response to our marketing and our, kind of profiling via social media, which we find to be the most successful way of promoting the need for more adopters. We've put on additional information nights, and we've got huge numbers of people who are now waiting to go into the process. It is causing me a little bit of a challenge. It will be presented to our board at the next board meeting in October around that challenge and how we actually adjust to meet that challenge, because what we don't want to do is turn anybody away who could potentially adopt a child and who's responded to our campaign for adopters for older children and children with more complex needs, which is a prevalent need within this region. I think I just want to, before I open up for any questions, I think I'd really like to just make comment about the adoption support element of ATV as well. I think, again, I'm very proud of the development of adoption support, and we try to work really closely together with the 5 local authorities. I noticed that Lisa Cushlow is in the meeting today, and Lisa and I have been liaising. She's new into post as head of service. We have continued to build on our 3-tier adoption support offer, and we kind of really rise into the government challenge, as I think all regional adoption agencies are, of delivering a much more sustained and long-term adoption support service for the children. And we're getting very positive feedback from adopters. We did a survey shortly after COVID hit, just to sort of understand and hear from adopters how they felt supported, what other supports they felt they would need. And in fact, we had quite a high response to our survey, and adopters were telling us in the main that they felt well supported and that they were managing, but they did know where we were if they needed some additional supports. I think I want to comment on the education support worker that's been co-funded across the region by the 5 virtual schools. We receive really, really good support from the 5 virtual heads and their virtual schools. And Emma Rutherford is obviously the Hartlepool Borough Council virtual head. And she supports Adoption Tees Valley tremendously. Each of the local authorities has co-funded an education support worker who is specifically dedicated to looking at supporting adopted children who need some help, some advocacy within the school system. Their parents may need some help to understand what their entitlements are, and that has been a really successful role. Emma oversees that role along with the other 5 virtual heads. We'll be meeting next week, and we'll be feeding back on the case involvement and the work and the outcomes, but it is referred to in my annual report. But we've got a very, very good education worker. She's a previous teacher, and she's working really effectively with schools across the region. Just before COVID hit, we were able to set up a children's group. We'd done quite a bit of planning to get a children's group off the ground, so it was a little bit frustrating that COVID hit. And we continued it on a video conferencing method like this. We didn't find it particularly successful. The children weren't really engaged enough with each other and with us. They had engaged well with the service, but we haven't continued that beyond the end of the last education term. We have we've carried on the existing contract for birth parent support, which was with after adoption very sadly, After Adoption was a charity that folded about a year ago, and we contracted with Adoption Matters on a temporary basis, but we're currently out to tender for a new birth parent support contract. And what we've done is we've tried to refresh that and actually seek to make it a little bit more innovative. And actually, our aim is for the offer of birth parent support to be more deeply embedded within care planning at an earlier stage. So we have evaluated that tender, but we haven't publicised the outcome of that yet. And we're aiming to go live with the new provider on the 1st of October. We've introduced a 1-year post-adoption support offer to all adoptive families post-order. So typically, the adoption support and the families, once the adoption order is granted, they leave the service and they would come back if they needed to ask for further support. What we've decided to do is remain involved with our assessing and placing social worker for a year post-order. And that's really to help keep people connected. And again, we're having really good feedback about that. People are talking really positively, and it seems to be leading people into picking up with therapeutic parenting training and just attending events at Adoption Tees Valley. So we've offered, the report refers to a lot of therapeutic parenting for adoptive parents. We're really encouraging all adopters to think about taking that up and to attend some therapeutic parenting training, because we know they're going to need it. And we see preparation training as being just that. And we want to encourage people to continue to learn, develop, but now with the knowledge of their child and how their child is presenting and what they need to help them meet the child's needs. We've extended the framework for preferred providers this year. We did another refresh of our tender and opened up that preferred providers list again. And that framework is available to the Adoption and Special Guardianship Fund. So it is available for any special guardians, children on special guardianship orders as well. But again, we've significantly increased our drawdown on the Adoption Support Fund. And you'll see in the figures that many more children are receiving therapeutic input, and we are getting good outcomes from that. We get a lot of positive reflection. In fact, adopters fed back in their droves at the beginning of lockdown that they wanted to really commend the way that independent providers had continued to work with them and deliver supports, because we know it was really challenging. In terms of the adopter voice, we've increased the number of meetings that we have with our Adopter Partnership Forum, and that did have the impact of bringing more adopters into the forum. It took a little bit of a kind of hit while COVID's happened, but we've got that up and running again, and we're getting adopters involved. And we did appoint 2 non-executive directors to the Adoption Tees Valley board earlier this year. In fact, Sally, I believe that was just about the last day before COVID was really, before the government locked us all down. Sally and I interviewed quite a number of adopters in the region, and we selected 2 adopters who we felt would make a really positive contribution to the board. So we're really kind of trying to increase that input. We had some additional funding from the Department for Education through the COVID period. We consulted with adopters as to what they would like us to deliver, and we have been able to commission the Adopter Hub, which is provided by PACT, a national charity, and also some kind of quite specialist support for adoptive parents who are undergoing increased violence by children, and some additional psychological support during COVID. So we're in the process of just setting up our evaluation process for that. So we've had a very busy year. I think we've had a really successful year. I'm hugely enjoying the job. I think most people in the team are hugely enjoying the work. I think the biggest challenge is that we are managing a lot more adoption than was expected, and of course a lot more adoption support than was expected. But this is really good news, and something that I think we all celebrate, because it means that those children are achieving permanence.
Fantastic, thank you, Vicky. Very in-depth report. amazing work that you've been going through while going through the COVID. Quickly to Brenda before we note this report.
I think Jim has his hand up.
Thanks,
See Jim, sorry.
Sorry, thanks, Brenda. Just a couple of observations. I'll be quite brief. I'm glad that you're recruiting. Your target was 50. Target was 60, and you got 50 new recruits. Obviously, you're moving that to 80 is a challenge. That's going to be a challenge. However, there's two things: observation, stroke question. I don't know whether it's for yourself or Sally. With the COVID implications that we've had, it could be likely, correct me if I'm wrong, there could be an increase in potential referrals. And on top of that, I'd just like to look at on the safeguarding processes that you put in place on page 24. It's pleasing to see that we must be working really hard when we've got 60% of the referrals from a safeguarding point of view 0 to 1, which means I would think we're on the ball with that. And when you look at when you add the next two together from 0 to 1 and years 2 to 3, you're looking at an 80% sort of referrals and successful referrals, if that's the case. Correct me if I'm wrong, which means to me that we've got our safeguarding processes, in place and they're structured correctly. So I think we need to be patting ourselves on the back from a safeguarding from Weather Council point of view and yourselves from an adoption point of view.
Brilliant, thank you,
I think
Jim.
I've worded that right. Thanks, Chair.
Jim, I would just respond to that and say that I think that my view is that is really strong in Hartlepool, and I think there's very confident care planning, and I think it is reflected in children achieving permanence at an earlier stage.
Thank you, Vicky. Brenda?
Yes, that's one of the things I was going to mention, Vicky, the fact that Hartlepool are in the lead there, which is very good. But I have to say, when you know what goes on, no surprise. So again, well done. I have to say as well that being part of the Adoption Tees Valley panel, which I don't go to every week, by the way, but I've experienced some of the things that Vicky's been on about. Nothing's stopped throughout the whole time, just like the fostering panels. And it's just doing it a slightly different way, but it's worked very well. I have to say, Teams is better than Skype. I'll get that in again. But basically, really good. And I've been very lucky to have some of our Hartlepool adopters come to the panels that I've been on. So, and a couple of them I've actually known. So that's really been very good as well. And I think overall, it's working very well as a regional adoption institute. Can't think of the word.
Agency.
Yeah. Agency, that's the one. Yeah. Thank you very much. So again, well done to everybody that's concerned.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brenda. Can we just note the report then? Everybody's happy with that?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I don't believe there's any other business with I consider urgent. So the next meeting will be on Tuesday, the 19th of November at 4 p.m. Thank you very much for everybody attending.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.